We've talked a lot about your string band, and it seems like you guys play a pretty varied repertoire. And anything else you want to say about that, the string band?
I've had people come up to, we'll do most of the concert work we do. I always tell people, people ask me, what do you play? And I will say, we start with Vivaldi and we end with Pinball Wizard. Which actually, Pinball Wizard is usually the encore that we play. And we do go through a range. Typical concert could start with Vivaldi, and then we might do music from the Royal Fireworks by Handel, where the Vivaldi, a typical Vivaldi will, let's say, the G major concerto, Opus 3, number 3, which are arranged for, it's violin and strings, are arranged for guitar and strings. And then Royal Fireworks by Handel, which is an orchestral work by Handel, arranged for violin and harpsichord, and I used both of those sources to make the arrangement for the group violinist and the lead. And then maybe the Ravel Pavane for Dead Princess, and then the famous Fandango by Boccherini that every guitarist who play ensemble music, or most do. And we might end the first half with Tamar does, her husband actually, every now and then we'll get it, most of the arranging I do, but not all of it. Her husband, Anatoly Trofimov, is a great Russian also musician, plays the bayan, which is kind of like, it's the Russian version of accordion, but it's a more sophisticated instrument. He's a great musician. He arranged the Carnival of Venice by Paganini for mandolin and strings. We usually open the second half with a guitar solo. It could be classical, it could be pops. We might follow that. We do the Bachianas Brasileiras of Villa-Lobos. Then we might do 3 ragtime pieces by Scott Joplin. And then we have a wonderful version of Old Man River with the bass, that's sung by a bass in the Broadway show Showboat. And then we'll do that with the bass playing the melody. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. And we might end the concert with a number of Duke Ellington tunes. Pinball Wizard is often an encore. Besame Mucho is a great piece for encore. Various pieces. Yeah. Now, people have said, do you do that because you're playing the pop music to placate the audience or something? And absolutely not. Now, it is true that there's a much bigger audience with that variety of repertoire, but we all love playing that variety of repertoire. Duke Ellington is great music. Old Man River by Jerome Kern, it's a great piece. Mm-hmm. The Ravel is a great piece. I'm just now finalizing my arrangement of the Third Brandenburg Concerto, BWV 1048 for the group. And I'll give you an example of a piece like that, how that arrangement works. Almost all of the arrangements in the guitar part. That is scored for 3 violins, 3 violas, 3 cellos, and continuo. So the violin plays the first violin part, the mandolin plays the second violin part, the viola plays the first viola part, and the bass plays the first cello part. Which means the guitar then is, throughout the score, is playing not all at the same time, but combination, you always need to have at least 2 voices moving on the guitar, almost always. Mm-hmm. You need at least 2 voices, otherwise it doesn't sound right. So I'm taking my part from the third violin part, the second and third viola parts, and the second and third cello parts. Which, by the way, the cello parts is the same bass line as the continuo part. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination. So what you have to do is you have to take all those different voices and make a cohesive part. And it's usually playing, there are measures where I'm just playing 1 voice, sometimes 2 voices, sometimes 3 voices. And it happens to work very well in that piece because in that piece, the second and third viola parts are fairly simple, and especially in the first movement. The cello parts too. In other words, it makes sense. It really works and everything. And now the process, what I do at first is I try to get in the guitar part as much of that as I can, and then I start paring it down.
So you mentioned that you've done some composing. Are any of those pieces published, or do you have plans to do more?
Yes, Bourbon published three of them in one. It's a small. It's a under the same cover, three pieces. One is called Lamento, and it is what it sounds like. It's an E minor introspective piece. One is called Molly's Dance, which I've recorded. It's on my Centaur CD, Lullabies, Reveilles, and Siesta. And another piece called Song Without Words, which I originally wrote as a vocalese, a little like the Lobos Bachianas Brasileiras in terms of a vocal line without words. And yes, Felix Mendelssohn wrote a whole series of piano pieces called Song Without Words. It's just a lyrical piece, instrumental piece, that's song-like. And I have recorded that with my wife, done two versions of that, actually, of Song Without Words on two of her CDs. One version was voice, guitar, synthesizer, and bass. The other version is just voice and guitar. And I've also recorded that with a great harmonica player named Robert Bonfiglio. And I think I mentioned to you earlier that my music is now in the catalog with a company called Pump Audio, which is a licensing company for music for movies, television, TV commercials, radio commercials, internet. And one of the pieces, they have that piece, Song Without Words, in the harmonica guitar version, and a piece I wrote for clarinet and guitar called Sunflower. Molly's Dance is on that, and a little fanfare that's also on my Lullaby CD. And Bourbon. Sorry.
Oh, so how do you get the stuff into the Pump Audio catalog? What did you have to do for that?
Pump Audio has a website. You go to that website, and there's a series of steps that through to get onto that. It starts off with sending them two MP3s, and then if they like it, you are greenlit, is the term they use. The next step is you send them an audio quality CD of whatever it is you want to submit, and then if you pass that test, then the next step is I sent in 8 pieces, 4 original compositions, and they also take public domain. If you're a recording person and you have CDs out, or I assume CDs or whatever you want to send, even if you haven't released the CD, I guess you can send them something. So I sent some Bach Scarlatti, the Bieber I mentioned, and Gaspar Sanz. And they evaluate that and take what they want. Fortunately for me, they took all 8 of them. And once that's happened, once you've cleared that final hurdle, then you're in the catalog. They have a hardware called the Pump Box, which their clients have, which is a way of clients listening to everything in their catalog and downloading it. And it's a good company. I actually got involved with that last March when the economy started really tanking, and I'm sure a lot of musicians were thinking, okay, what do I have that can make money? And I had these pieces which I'd never done anything with, and I called a friend, a jazz guitarist, and said, how do you get your music into a movie or something? And that happens either through a company like this, a licensing company, or it's funny that we're talking about it now, because the other thing I'd always heard is if a producer of a movie or a television show hears you, they could hear you playing at a gig, they could hear you anywhere if they want it. They're the people, the producers are the people who choose the music, and that's how it gets in. And I've never known a producer. It's supposedly really helps. That's, when people go to LA or something, there is a lot of networking, of course. That's just not a scene that I've ever been part of. But I was in, I'll just say a little bit about this right now because I'm not sure what's going to happen. I was in Riverside Park with my 2 dogs yesterday, and there's a guy who also has a yellow Labrador Retriever, a beautiful dog, and we're thinking of getting a 3rd dog. And I stopped him, I was talking to him, because the breeder that we got our dog from is, has retired. So I asked him where the breeder, and he gave me the information. We just started talking, and he asked me what I did, and I told him about music. And it turns out he's a filmmaker. not only is he a filmmaker, he's got a new movie that they'll probably, I think they're going to start shooting it in next summer. And he told me all about it, and it was on a topic that I'm very, very interested in. I happen to have a background in this area. It's not something about music, a different area, having to do with history. I don't want to say anything more than that. But it's something that I've read a lot about. And he asked me, you know, he's looking for music now, and he asked me to send him MP3s of the stuff I have, which I did last night. And he emailed back, he said he loved it, and that we'll be in touch. Now, that means anything from you're never going to hear from him again to he's going to use it, you never know. But I am actually very interested in doing more with composing and arranging now. Why not? You know, no reason not to.